So Lina Andersson from Law Enforcement, Swedish Customs, and you will be talking about Sweden, I suppose, and what's going on, but maybe also about a little bit about Interpol. Let's see.
Yes, my name is Lina Andersson, comes from the Swedish law enforcement, Swedish customs, and I'm here to more or less tell you a little bit about from another angle, how can the law enforcement tackle this problem, and how has we tackled these problems. I'm here to tell you about Operation Robin. Operation Robin was an investigation that we deal with for a long time. And why this makes it so special is because this is actually one of the world's largest investigation of its kind. And it also kind of broke the barrier of how to investigate these kind of investigations. Operation Robin was a 1.5-year long investigation. It was an investigation against an organization that was providing Scandinavia, mostly Sweden, with steroid, narcotic tablets, and medicines. This investigation didn't focus on whether the products that was sold was falsified, but I think as I take you along this road, I think we can be quite agree on that all these medicine was falsified. We focused instead of the crimes that was committed during this investigation. It was a matter about heavily smuggling offenses, heavily narcotic crimes, heavily steroid crimes, money laundering, and of course, heavily offenses against the medicine law. The investigation was focusing on the period from January the 1st, 2009 up until May the 8th, 2012, but the criminal activity has been going on much, much longer than the period we choose to investigate. What did we do then? Well, it was a huge, huge operation where most of it actually was to analyze email traffic. It was about doing a lot of surveillance, doing a lot of phone tapping, install hidden cameras, using surveillance cameras, doing test purchases, making analysis of bank accounts, making analysis of historical delivery of parcels. It was a bunch of legal aids involved in this. When the investigation started, we knew that there was 3 internet sites that was of interest. But during the investigation, we came across a 4th. Steroidakuten, Viking Store, and anabolic pharmacies, all of them sold steroids, and also medicine that is used when you are taking steroids. All of these, most of the things that they sold was also produced by themselves within the organization. And we also came across a 4th internet site that was Net Pharma. They sold narcotic medicine and other medicines. As I told you, this was a long journey, and it all started off with that the Swedish police and the Swedish customs sent out a legal aid to Canada. And it was concerning an internet server called Hashmail. We sent it in during 2009, and in September 2011, the answer came back. And what was the answer then? Well, it was millions of encrypted emails from 2007 up until September 2011. A huge work started then. We started to read through all those millions of emails. And what did they say then? Well, it says everything. Loud and clear, they wrote everything out on paper except the real names. They used alias. Not one single email wasn't interested in this investigation. So we started to identify people, which were the person behind this alias. We started to see and find out the structure, how the organization behind those internet sites looked like. We started to identify the smuggling routes, and that was more or less one of the second hardest work in this case. We started to find out how much they brought into Sweden, how much they brought into Scandinavia, what kind of active substances, what kind of product did they brought in, what did they produce, how much did they produce, and of course, how long have they been dealing with this organization, how had it developed, etc. Quite fast, we could see that this organization was organized the same way as a normal company. We could also see that it was 4 leaders who was behind this organization. We could see that they were well organized, and we could see that they, of course, earn a lot of money on this organization. They had, at the time when we started to investigate, they had one vice director. He was the owner of the company, and he was also, at the time we started to investigate, and by the time we apprehended him, he was a lawyer. He had a second YD that was more or less in charge of the import and the smuggling sector, and he had another vice director that was in charge of the economy part and the administration part. And during the investigated time, there also was a 4th vice director, but because of him serving lifetime prison in Thailand, they slowly started to bar him out of the company. To their help, they had a coordination sector. Here they had a right-hand man who makes sure that everything runs smooth within the organization, you could say. By the time we started to look at him, he was applying for the police academy in Sweden, and he was also looking for jobs at the Swedish customs. What did he do then? Well, he made international transactions, he made sure that money was paid out in time, etc. He was the one who actually was most in contact with the employers of this company. They had a selling department, where here you find the people that was answering the email of all the customers that wanted to buy those products. And they also had people who was dispatcher. They packed the orders and sent it out to the buyers. They had a distribution sector, and here was some guys who were picking up parcels that came from abroad or came from other parts in Sweden. They have a production sector. Here you find people who was making tablets and oils, steroid oils. And of course they had economy sector. Here you find people who were taking out money from ATM to pay out to employers, the one who were dealing with salaries, the one who handled bank accounts that the organization was involved with. And what could we say about the money they make? It was a lot. During this time, 2009 up until 2011, they made 4.5 million euros on this organization. The leaders took 3.5 of it, and rest went to the staff. As I said, one of the hardest things with this case was more or less to find the smuggling routes. The email address and the conversation that was concerning how they transported and how they order active substances from mostly China didn't include in the encrypted email that we got. So we started to investigate this. It was a big puzzle to put out, I can say. We could see that the raw material came from Asia, mostly China and Hong Kong. It was then sent to mailboxes in London, and then further on to mailboxes in Germany, and sometimes it was also shipped to Denmark before it reached Sweden. These parcels, of course, they always got new addresses and new names every time they landed at some mailbox company, and those mailbox companies was so smooth, so you can go in there, rent it with a fake ID, and you could pay it with faceless credit cards or cash. So it was kind of impossible to trace which one was actually behind those mailboxes. Once it reached Sweden then, well, it started off with having the parcels delivered to a fake address. This fake address was then directed to become a new address, and that they do by leaving a note at the fake address place or sending emails where it would be redirected. After the transport company went to the fake addresses, they got a new address and sent it forward on. And that was also to a mailbox company, and that was always a mailbox company in Sweden, Brevia. This Brevia is the same as the one in London and in Germany. You can go in there, fake ID, pay cash, and it's not traceable. At Brevi, after some days, they stored them there. A person came up to pick it up, took it home to his place, stored it 2 days, up to 2 weeks, then gave the parcel new addresses and shipped it on, further on. Till it finally reached the last destination, and that was always the producer. The producer never received the parcel by post. It was always by meeting a person, in person then. These are the countries that were involved in these smuggling routes and to make the organization able to function as well as they did. 30 countries are involved. I have marked out the one that was involved with money transaction in green, the one that was involved with products and equipments in red, and the ones that were dealing with both in blue. Then you have the one that is, would you say, not a whole through line. That is the ones that they sent money to, and that is also the countries you can't cooperate with to take out the cash they sent there. So they sent a lot of money to countries at Switzerland, Panama, Cayman Island, etc. I have made a ring around 6 of these countries. That's China, US, UK, Denmark, Germany, and Egypt. And I would say without these countries, this organization wouldn't have functioned. China and Egypt provided them with active substances and tablet machines. USA with equipment for producing steroid oils. Denmark, UK, and Germany gave them the possibility to transport illegal goods through their countries by fake IDs. This is a total seizure during Operation Robin. I would say that most of these seized goods are during the bust that took place the 8th of May 2012. 11 million units of steroids, 550 narcotic tablets, and 4 kilos of narcotic powder. 610 tablets of medicine. There was equipment for producing liquid steroids and tablets, labels for steroids, machine for making tablets, and we also confiscated assets for around 700 euros. And what does this say then? Well, I will give you a measurement. During this year's Operation Robin, 103 countries, I think, were involved during 1 week to battle this, and they came up to 12.5 million units of illegal products. This is what just happened during one bust, so one country can do a lot. Just going to show you some pictures here of how it looked like. This is a facility where we store our confiscated goods, and I would say that it's a little bit bigger than this room. And this is actually what we took, or this is half of what we took. It can't fit it in one huge garage. This is a picture of how it looked at their laboratories, if you would call it like that. So I think we quite sure can say that this is falsified medicine and falsified steroid that are not good. On top you see the guy that was producing tablets, steroids and narcotic tablets. He had built a little room in his house, and inside this room it looked like that. Outside his room, his kids' rabbits were jumping around. There were hair, there were dust, there were a mix of different kind of powders at his room where he produced those tablets that were sent out to customers. Down low, you see the guy who was producing steroid as oils. In this little box to the right, he mixed it up after he had boiled it at a stove next to this little box. And there you see, on the left-hand side, you see how the vials looks when they are done and ready to be sent out. Our stories always, or usually if we're lucky, ends with some time in prison, and it did here too. We went to court with 23 persons, all of them got charged. Here you see 16 of them, and these are the 16 persons that got the most important role in this organization. The prosecutor pleaded for around 100 years in prisons altogether, but the Swedish court fought that they should have 53 years together. Of course, the vice director, the owner of the company, etc., got the most time in prison. Many of these are out on the streets now. They have served their time, but the leaders are still in prison. And you see on top, you see the former vice president, he's still serving lifetime in Thailand. That's it.